All right, so we are going to discuss a few races that happened on Saturday at the racetrack that shall not be named, because there were some important results in terms of championship implications and potential next steps in the Breeders' Cup. Speaking of next stepped into the Greenwood Cup on Saturday, like that.
I see what you did there. That was so smart.
Professional, baby. Yeah.
I want to see how you do that
so
with
he won.
Thorpedo Anna.
I did it last week with the facing spot. Thorpedo Anna, she is now, right?
It's true.
Yes.
It's true. You are a wordsmith. You are a wordsmith, my friend.
I'm true to this, not new to this. Anyway, next won the Greenwood Cup by a mere 10 lengths on Saturday after winning it by 25 lengths last year. He was 1-20. Was probably the safest bridge jumper bet in history. Is, a lot of times those are a little dicey, but there was absolutely no way, unless the jockey fell off the horse, he was going to run worse than third in that race. And now the question becomes, does he run in the Breeders' Cup? I'm going to quote here from Doug Cowan's after the race. He said, there are a lot of things that can go wrong in that kind of race, talking about the Breeders' Cup. I'm not saying we're against it, but we'll sit down and have a big conversation. The thing about the horse is we'll always want to have fun with them. The money doesn't matter. We found something the horse likes to do, and we want to keep doing it with him. It's not solely my decision, but my gut tells me to stay with the distance and give up the surface if I would do something like that. I know you got to face the Europeans, and they have a good turn of foot. You worry about that. Going to the dirt mile and a quarter, I worry about the pace. We don't know where we'll go, but we will see. I mean, to me, that's shocking. I would run him in the Classic. Like, if there were ever an older male division ripe for the picking, this is the one. Like, honestly, I would take Thorpedo Anna over most of the older dirt males in this country. Like, I would be shocked if they sent him to the turf, because I understand that he's had past success on the grass, but that was way back. That was like when he was first claimed. He's been a dirt marathoner since then, and he's not like he's this runoff speed. Like, he can sit behind horses, he can track, like he can do everything you need to do to be successful at a mile and a quarter. He clearly is fast enough. I don't understand the reticence to go after the crown jewel in this Breeders' Cup, in any Breeders' Cup. I think that would be a big mistake if they ran him in the turf over the Classic. But either way, I just want to see him challenge, because these races put me to sleep, John. And I get it. It's fun for the owner and fun for the trainer. It's not that often in this business that you can have like a free stakes win, and he's had one after another. But at a certain point, you got to think, you have a horse this good, don't you want to get to the bottom of him? Don't you want to see how good he really, really is? And I think that spot would be the Classic. But as long as he is not running against the riding with Bidens of the world next time out, John, I'm a happy boy.
And Joe, okay, the horse we're talking about next here. The horse has won 7 consecutive races, all on dirt. All of them were 101 buyer or more. He earned 102 over the weekend at that racetrack. Yet, and all of them were stakes. Now, if I said to you, Joe Bianca, don't cheat, don't look, how much money has the horse earned this year for winning the Murphy Marathon, the Brooklyn, the stake race at Saratoga, and now the Greenwood Cup? How much do you think he's earned?
I'm going to say 400,000, 350,
okay,
400.
You would be correct. You'd be correct, Joe Bianca. You would be absolutely correct. You're a good man. $400,000. So you have arguably the most dominant marathoner in recent history, and the horse has made $400,000 for winning 4 races this year. You got to step him up, if for no other reason, because he's a gelding, 6-year-old gelding, and he doesn't have any stallion deals down the road. All the reasons you mentioned about how there's a dearth of talent at that upper level for older males, we will go through the 3-year-old group. There is some talent there, but for all intents and purposes, you would have to think that if I wanted to run for the most amount of money, which is obviously the Breeders' Cup Classic, against arguably an easier field than the turf race, with the Euros coming in and with some good domestic horses here as well, that if you ran him in the Breeders' Cup Classic, I mean, would he be 5-1? Would he be 6? I mean, he wouldn't be like 20-1 in the race. He wouldn't even be 10-1 in the race. So if you're doing it strictly with, hey, I got a horse that can be 5-6-1 in the richest race remaining on the calendar in the American racing, And this is my chance to really test him. And I mean, they've managed him beautifully, but this is a chance to really test him. I got 6 weeks between races. You got to run in the Classic, especially because his Beyer numbers and his sheet numbers are so much better on the dirt.
It's so funny how long this has been going on. And I'm glad. I don't think they have this race anymore. I mean, if they do, it's like ungraded. I was at Keeneland in 2022 when he won that Breeders' Cup Dirt Marathon race. I remember him blowing past me on the turn. That was almost 2 years ago now that he's been kicking around the friggin' Washington Generals and the Little Giants of the world in the marathon division, because there is no division. It's him. He's the division. And it's long past time, I think, that we see how good he really is, and I'm hoping that we'll get that chance. I mean, just John, am I crazy, or is the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Classic going to be a horse who's never been on dirt before? He's never run on dirt before. Right. City of Troy, I think, if you held the race today, would be favored in the Classic. He's never stepped foot on a dirt track. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about how big of an opportunity this is to win the richest race in America, and I don't know what is. John, take it away. Seize the gray. I know you got to be in your bonnet.
It's not so much a bee in my bonnet as it is, people need to tamper down excitement and enthusiasm a little bit. The horse won a grade 1, which is phenomenal. All of us want to do that. All of us want to win a grade 1. He was, he took the race. It was ripe for the picking. He went right to the front and kept going. And that's the way, you win a race like that, is you take it to the rest of the group. Ran a 97 Beyer, was the second best number of his life outside of the Preakness win, a few months ago. That being said, can we please relax with this horse is going to be 3-year-old of the year based on his current resume? Can we just tamper it down a little bit, just a little enthusiasm? Joe, he won 2 grade 1s this year. Absolutely important. One of them was a Triple Crown race, the Preakness. He did it on a sloppy track, went wire to wire. Then he got trounced in the Belmont. Then he got trounced in the Jim Dandy. They brought him back in the Pennsylvania Derby, which he went gate to wire and won. And it was an impressive 5 seconds off the track record. So again, brilliant management. And look, I want to say one thing. Like I've crapped on my racehorse because I don't necessarily think that it's a good business model for investors. But I will say one thing. They did a phenomenal job getting a stallion contract with these kickers in it from Gainesway, because now they've been able to maneuver the horse and manage the horse properly, where, they're getting millions of dollars. Somebody's getting millions of dollars. They're getting millions of dollars from Gainesway for ticking off another grade 1 race. So, from management of myracehorse.com, they did a brilliant, brilliant job. But is he as good at this point in time as Fierceness, as Sierra Leone, Dornoch, Thorpedo Anna, for example, in being what some people say the obvious leader in the 3-year-old group right now? I would say nay. I would say that's bullshit as far as I'm concerned, because yes, the horse did win 2 grade 1s, and everyone's got warts in this division, Joe. Fierceness had bad losses in the Derby and the Holy Bull, but he won the Travers, he won the Jim Dandy, he won the Florida Derby, all, legitimate races, even though Jim Dandy's a grade 2. 3 quality races. I know you don't like Sierra Leone because he always comes from out of it, but he did win the Bluegrass. He placed in the Travers and the Dandy and the Belmont and the Kentucky Derby. Mystic Dam won the Kentucky Derby, but nobody's heard from him since. Okay, so we don't know about that. Dornoch, you can make a case for as being the leader, winning the Haskell, which I thought was a tougher field than the Pennsylvania Derby, the Belmont, and the Fountain of Youth. And yeah, he wasn't anywhere in the Travers and the Kentucky Derby, but he's a horse that's built for the Classic again. And then, Joe, I would even sneak in an argument for domestic product better than Gray.
Let's settle down now.
Because he won the Jerkins, which is a grade 1, and a couple in the Dwyer and the Tampa Bay Derby. And he is going to be one of the favorites in the mile. So if he wins the mile, the Breeders' Cup Mile, wait, let me finish. If he wins the Breeders' Cup Mile, then does he have a more legitimate resume than some of the other ones that I mentioned before, if they don't run any good in the Classic? If next goes gate to wire or wins the Classic at that point. That's not even to mention the fact that the best 3-year-old in the country is Thorpedo Anna. Please, have the microphone.
All right. The floor is mine. Yeah, I don't share your disdain for Seize the Gray.
It's
I
not
think he's a
disdain.
cool horse. He's by Arrogate. Like I do like that, my racehorse had a bunch of people there really excited to be part of it. Like obviously we went back and forth about whether it's like a real investment or whether it's a fan club. Regardless, like it's bringing a lot of people into the sport, and I don't think we can poo-poo that at any more than we would any other, fan club or racing club that is in the sport. It was cool to see Dwayne Lucas win another grade one at 89 years old. But yes, if anybody's out there seriously making the argument that Seize the Gray should be the 3-year-old champion, they got some bats in the belfry, my friend, because the two times he won the Preakness against, let's be real, aghast Mystic Dan and a bunch of other nobodies. He won the Pat Day Mile against Nash, who's one of the bigger phony 3-year-olds in the country. And then the 2 times before Saturday that he really faced the best of his crop, he lost by 12 3/4 lengths in the Belmont, and he lost by 12 lengths in the Jim Dandy. Got dusted by Fierceness, dusted by Dornock. Good for them. They found $1 million grade one that none of the other big boys showed up to. We said it last week. This isn't revisionist history. We said it last week. There was nobody really scary in that race when Dragoon Guard was going to be the favorite. Good for them. They found that spot, but no, he's not the 3-year-old champion. And it's another stallion going to stud that
Right.
I mean, you drill down on his resume, like, is it really like worth propagating the genes for a horse like this? Like, he's a nice horse and he's been a cool story, but it's just inflated resume. I would agree with you.
No, absolutely, Joe. It's so much so that like he earned a 98 buyer winning the Pennsylvania Derby. I'm looking up 97 buyer winning the Pennsylvania Derby. Batten Down, who won the Bourbon Flight, earned a 98.
Yeah.
And nobody. I was in the Batten Flight in the Bourbon Flight. Nobody's going to confuse the horses in that race for the horses in the Triple Crown races by any stretch.
I was definitely a Bourbon Flight deep by the time the
I would hope so.
Pennsylvania Derby came around on Saturday, and
I would hope so.
And I didn't, obviously, as you know, wouldn't bet a single dollar on that fucking card.
By the way, just so we're shifting back into the ills of Parx. How about they had almost an hour between races, setting things up. So the last race on the card was actually at night. It was like Meadowlands-esque. I thought they were going to have everyone turn their lights on the infield to on the parking lot to light the way for the last race. I mean, that was again another one where it was like, why?
Yes, I should ask Dave Grening about that, because he had a good tweet. He was like, if all the My Racehorse owners can come back and turn their cell phone lights on, then maybe there'll be enough light to run.
That was a classic line.
But of course they plowed along and did it anyway. I just want to touch on Thorpedo Anna before we wrap.
Oh, that's right. The most important 3-year-old in the country.
Yes, she also ran Saturday, and she wasn't all that impressive, but it was just one of those races where, even though she only won by a head, it just seemed like she had them whenever she wanted. She got I think a 97 buyer in that race. She beat Gunsong, who was a pretty nice filly for Mark Hennig, but obviously not in Thorpedo Anna's class normally. And she's just, to me, I would love to see her in the Breeders' Cup class. She actually got 93 buyer, my bad. So it definitely was not her top effort. She regressed a bunch, and I'm thinking maybe that tells Kenny McPeak he should run in the distaff, but I don't know. I just don't think that race was a true measure of her talent level. And again, I'd love to see her in the Classic, love to see Next in the Classic. That would really bring some juice to the race, along with City of Troy, because outside of City of Troy right now, that is a boring Classic field on paper. So we'll see. She didn't do everything that she did in the Travers in some of her previous races, but she won. She put herself in a great spot, broke immaculately, as she almost always does, and she's just a running machine, John, that we would all love to have in the barn.
No question about it. And she got boxed in pretty well, the first half of the race, and it was like, no big deal. Once she saw the opening, she bolted through, and Brian Hernandez did the right thing by just kind of wrapping up on her. She could have won by a number of lengths. By daylight, if you want. She didn't have to. We called it that she was going to bounce 20 points. It was almost exactly 20 points. For those of you at home, she ran a 111 buyer, and in the Travers, she ran a 93. So 18 points. I think that's pretty damn close for prognosticators like ourselves. But this wasn't the important race on her resume. This really wasn't, even though it sounds silly because it was the cotillion, for God's sake. It was, another grade one on her resume. But it's the next race that is going to be the most important for her. And again, not that I need to give Kenny McPeak any advice whatsoever. And I know he's a friend of the show and he listens, but I would run her in the distaff and just kick ass and just coast to multiple championships at that point. Because, again, if it's in her case, the multiple championships is going to be worth, a lot of money. Is it worth as much as the Classic? No, but there's a bigger risk running in the Classic, even with this kind of tampered down, watered down field that may be assembled in there. She is going to be the queen bee in the distaff, and all eyes will be on her. And I think, she can come back, and she's shown that she dominates that field.
I would love to see her against Idiomatic. So yeah, I'm not going to be disappointed either way. I just think, she ran so well in the Travers. I would love to see her take another crack against boys to see if she can get that W. Just real quickly, what we have to look forward to this weekend. We got a couple of big Breeders' Cup preview days at Belmont and Aqueduct, the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic on Saturday. Warlike Goddess going for 3 in a row. This is where we need a stat department. Julia, has there ever been a filly or mare to win a grade 1 against males 3 years in a row? Get right on that, would you please? So I'd love to see her accomplish that feat. I feel like Julia's going to pop in and say something.
I was waiting.
I'm waiting for it.
They got to work for you.
But we also got the Pilgrim, the Vosburg, the Woodward on Saturday. Let's take a gander at the Woodward Stakes and see what monsters next is avoiding. Well, it's the fourth race of the day, so that's usually a great sign when you have a grade 2 on the fourth race. It's 5 horses, so par for the course. Skippy Longstocking, Croupi, Tappet Trice, Mask Parade, and a Chilean horse I've never heard of. So yeah, that might be what's waiting for next, other than like the big dog in City of Troy at the Classic. So I'd love to see him again running that race. Also, this is the big California Cup day at Santa Anita. We got the California Crown, grade 1 $1 million race. And we got the Eddie D Stakes, the John Henry Turf Championship, the City of Hope Mile. I'm interested to see what the California Crown looks like, what it handles, because this is a new thing. Like it used to be the Awesome Again Stakes, and now Belinda Stronach and the Stronach Group, instead of boosting the purse accounts, which again are in the red at Santa Anita, it seems meet after meet, they want this big day. Hopefully people come and see her show. But that's what's on tap for this weekend.
Well, and Joe, don't forget, if I can throw in my last DJ Stable interest, Shifty is going to run in the Miss Grillo, the Win and You're In on Sunday. Entries are Wednesday, so before we're precursoring the entries, but make sure that's must-see TV, except for you and me, because I understand you're going to be out of the country and they're extraditing me out of the country pretty soon. So neither one of us are going to be around to watch Shifty run on Sunday. But Joe, where are you going to be? Where in the world is Joe Bianca going to be next week?
I'm going to be flying to Santorini, Greece for my honeymoon, which is very exciting. Now the travel is going to be a nightmare. This is where I get on my Karen soapbox. We had an American Airlines flight to Athens, which is already like a 10-hour flight, and then another trip to Santorini, which is 15 hours. They canceled our flight and added a layover to Chicago. So we have to fly like 3 hours in the wrong direction and then have a 5-hour layover in Chicago to then jump on a 10-hour flight to Athens. Like, I'm so mad, and they haven't done anything for us. Meg went full Karen on them, and they were like, sorry, got your money, shit out of luck. So the trip is going to be amazing. I cannot wait. I'll show you plenty of photos and videos. But yeah, screw you, American Airlines.
And how long are you going to be in Greece once you do?
I'll be there like 8 or 9 days, so a little over a week.
Wow. Very, very cool.
Meg's yelling from downstairs. Don't forget about the seats. Yeah, they split up our seats too. Like,
well, that's probably good for Meg.
All right.
Tell her not to complain too much on that. She could be like, I can't believe they did that.
John just wiped his brow for our audience.
For the audience,
anyway,
they can't see. They can't.
We're babbling. Let's wrap up the show.
Exactly. I'm going to be thank you for asking, Joe. I'm going to be in Provence, France, and then maybe go over for the yearling sales as well. But I do appreciate your interest in my travel as well.
I mean, you're always somewhere. Like, come on, this is a bigger deal for me than it is for you.
It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. I'm excited for you. But the reason why I'm getting into this is because, needless to say, we are not going to have a show next week. why I'm getting into this. For those of you diehards, you're going to have to watch some clips on replay. Patty Wolf is going to come in and explain to me why that's wrong. Obviously, yes, Patricia. Oh, and as Patty's saying that nobody can hear her, so I'm going to have to plug the breakaways, as well as maybe an off the rails. Julia, once you're done looking up Joe's trivia questions, could we maybe produce an off the rails? Because God knows we've had a lot of mistakes and funny moments that we will need to replay. And Joe, I think what you should do is, you need to have Megan call back American Airlines and say, God damn it, don't you know who I am? I represent 50,000 subscribers, most of them international. And they are going to do a shitstorm on your parade if you don't fix this.
Show your loyalty to Rail Talk and spam American Airlines comments. That's how I'll know you really love me, if you can get us upgraded on this flight.
That's right. Skip, do it twice, please. Will you, please?
Skip's done enough.
Skip has done enough for this show. That is really true.
He's like a horse that's won a grade 3. It's like, oh, he's done enough. Time to send him off to stud.
Send him off to stud. Yee! And now we've lost a subscriber in Kelly.